Welcome into Flag for Discussion, episode 78 for Monday, May the 4th. May the 4th be with you if you celebrate such things. My name is Forbode Merkazi. Jace Hatfield's out this week. We'll have him back next week for a special Mother's Day edition of Flag for Discussion. Man, a lot of things happened in college football, a lot of things happening in the sports world right now. If you who are listening to my voice right now, I don't know if it's a cold or if it's allergies or whatever I've got, but my voice is a little extra scratchy. So we'll try to get through this together. I got some hot lemon water next to me, a tea on deck. So I just want to talk about sports, obviously college football. We're going to talk the Brendan Sorsby situation. That news broke the day of our last podcast being released, so we didn't have a chance to really react to it live. We reacted to it plenty on our own ends, but there's a lot to talk about there. We also got to talk about the coach in the program that's really becoming the official Flag for Discussion coach in Bob Chesney and UCLA. They're making some noise, guys, and I don't know if it's when we can start taking our victory lap. I don't think we can do it yet. But there's a lot to talk about with Bob Chesney, what UCLA is doing. Are they going to be able to start making a noise in the Big Ten? I'll break all of that down when we get there. The Celtics just blew a 3-1 lead. They were 32-0 in franchise history, up 3-1. The 76ers, the team that beat them, were 0-18 in franchise history, down 3-1. They ended up beating the Celtics. And as a Southern California boy, yeah, I'm not rooting for either of these teams, but it always warms my heart when the Celtics lose. So it's fun. It's a lot of fun going on in sports right now. The Mets, they can't buy a win. It's a $70 million payroll, and they are the worst team in baseball. And then as for me, yesterday I had my wine tasting at our wedding venue for our upcoming wedding. And man, you wish you could do that more often in your life. You sit down in a room with a sommelier, and they hand you a 2-ounce pour of every wine they make at that winery. You walk out, you're very well lubricated at that point. We spent a great time learning about the wines from the sommelier himself, learning as much as we could, tasting as much as we could, and we got food afterwards, and I'm not ashamed or unafraid to say this. We got home around 4 p.m. I didn't wake up until 4 hours ago. I think I slept for 15 hours. It's been lovely. I'm full of energy. With that said, let's get into some college football. Let's get into the Brendan Sorsby conversation. Make sure if you like what you hear, you are following us on Twitter at F4Discussion, on TikTok at Flag the 4 Discussion. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts of Flag for Discussion spelled out. Like I said, scratchy throat, but I'm full of energy, ready to go talk about sports. So I don't know how long this is going to be. We're going to try to make it efficient, try to make it quick, try to make it a good, fun Flag for Discussion before we call it quits for the day. Brendan Sorsby, something we like to do on this podcast is not, we have the best listeners, because we don't have to go full diehard, full ball knower mode on them at all times, but we also don't want to go too simple at all times either. We like to give the backgrounds of situations. So Brendan Sorsby, obviously, the ESPN headline that I can lead the story off with is Brendan Sorsby has checked himself into a gambling rehab program after there was news or reports from the NCAA that he's under investigation for gambling on games throughout the last couple years. Brendan Sorsby ended up at Texas Tech this year after a recruiting battle in the transfer portal early January between Texas Tech, LSU, and Miami. So before he was at Cincinnati, Brendan Sorsby was at Indiana, not the Curt Cignetti Indiana. He was at the Tom Allen Indiana. In 2023, he actually started some games for 1,500 yards, 15 touchdowns. Looked like a potential future star. And Tom Allen gets fired. Cignetti comes in. Brendan Sorsby says, peace out. I'm going to Cincinnati. Cincinnati takes him over. He takes over as a primary starter in 2024. 2025, he becomes a Davey O'Brien Award semifinalist. He throws for 30. He has 36 total touchdowns, over 2,800 yards. And apparently, during this time, Cincinnati was alerted to Sorsby's gambling habits. The gambling habits that they were alerted to, allegedly, I'm reading right now, were before the 2025 season. And that ended up being reported as when he was a redshirt at Indiana in 2022, he started placing bets on Indiana Hoosiers games. And that's there's a lot of different, you can have any opinion on gambling. I know there's the old school gambling shouldn't be welcome in our sports, shouldn't be welcome in college football, shouldn't be welcome in baseball, shouldn't be welcome anywhere. I have a coworker who tells me it's hard to take some of these leagues seriously when gambling is involved and legalized at the level that it is. My argument at all times is legalized gambling has not made it more prevalent because people would be gambling regardless. It's allowed leagues, organizations, Major League Baseball, the NBA. We've seen all the stuff that's come down from the NBA this past year, college football, to actually track gambling and actually enforce their rules much more. It's much more enforceable. It's much more policeable now than when everything was under the table. When everyone just had a bookie. Now you can track all of the legal bets, and that's how Brendan Sorsby was caught. He was caught placing thousands of wagers during the 2022 season placed on Indiana football. I've talked about the old school line of thinking. There's also Jace would bring up the Jameson Williams when he was a Lion getting suspended because he placed bets on collegiate games inside the Lions facilities. My only thought behind that is like, if you have the funds, if you have the wherewithal to gamble, if you also have this is going to sound bad, the self-control, the ability to get up from a table, as they call it, the ability to not chase losses, to like, if you lose $5, I lost $5. Don't try to go make 10 to make it all better because you're going to lose that 10. If you have that ability, I have no problem with you gambling. I have no problem with you having some fun. I think it's an added part of our sport fandom, and it's an added, if you do it the right way, it can be enjoyable even if you lose money. What I do have a problem with is when players on whatever sport, whatever team, gamble on their own team, because whether or not they have access or the ability, like we saw in the NBA, all those players who were caught betting on their over, like trying to get Jesus, trying to have their unders hit, which means they had direct impact on if they had 3 blocks or not, if they had 5 assists or not, if they had 12 points or not. Like, we saw some NBA players go score 8 points and then just take themselves out for the whole game because they just knew they were under needed to hit. And if they stayed in, they couldn't do that without it looking fishy. Now, obviously, they got caught still. So it was still fishy the way they did it. But I have a problem when you gamble on your own team. I have a problem in sports because the one thing every sport needs, it isn't superstars, isn't you need fans. It isn't superstars. It isn't like really famous people involved. It isn't influencers showing up at their games. The one thing every sport needs is integrity. If you can guarantee the integrity of your World Series, if you can guarantee the integrity of your national championship, people will bend over backwards to go watch your product as long as it's a good product itself. But if you start adding the tinge, the possibility that the outcome that happened was a little tainted, it was a little scripted, or there was a player on the team that said, I'm going to impact this game because I have money on the line, that's where I'll draw the line in terms of gambling. That's what allegedly Brendan Sorsby has been accused of from his Indiana days. So then Cincinnati was alerted to it, and they allowed him to play through the 2025 season, but they were alerted of his gambling habits. He leaves Cincinnati. He transfers out, ends up signing for $5 million with Texas Tech. Cincinnati files a $1 million breach of contract lawsuit because he was under contract with Cincinnati, and they were going back and forth trying to settle that. April 17th in the Texas Tech spring game, Sorsby thrives. He dominates, throws 3 touchdowns. He's the Big 12 preseason player of the year favorite. Texas Tech is the favorite to repeat as Big 12 champs. Texas Tech has pretty good odds to potentially make and win the national title. That's the difference Brendan Sorsby had on their team this year than if they went out and got a run-of-the-mill quarterback. Brendan Sorsby, don't be mistaken, he's an excellent quarterback, and he gave Texas Tech national title ceiling. So 10 days after the spring game, April 27th, last week, Pete Thamel broke the news that Sorsby's entering a residential treatment program for gambling addiction. He takes an indefinite leave of absence from the team. And look, I've been around people who have went through the same battle. Gambling addiction is nothing to sneeze at. Gambling addiction is one of the addictions that doesn't have a physical face to it. If you know what I like, if someone's going through alcoholism, they are addicted to smoking. There are a lot of addictions out there. You see the physical toll it has on a person. Gambling addictions, oftentimes, and I'm not speaking this just straight out of my ass. I've heard tales from people who've unfortunately gone through these trials. Gambling addiction, if there's a sense of like pride of not admitting to it, which ends up sending you down a deeper rabbit hole. And you end up feeling alone and solo on your own, especially because you're starting to chase bets. You have creditors that need the money back. And then you start making bad decisions and blah, 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 blah. Eventually, gambling addiction can really, really have a truly damaging toll on your life. I wanted to bring this up because some people sneeze at the gambling addict aspect. It's a serious addiction, a serious problem. So for the kid's sake, I hope he gets the help he needs. He comes out on the other side as a person who understood what he did, understood why he did it, but has the tool belt and toolbox to not do it again and become a voice and a support system for other people going through the same thing. So I want to bring that up first. I hope for the best for the kid. With that said, we've seen now twice in this story that people at Cincinnati, at Indiana, were alerted of this gambling habit that Brendan Sorsby had. One, how could you not help the guy? I understand sports are a zero-sum league and you have to go win, and you're scared of if you try to actually get him the help he needs, your team will win less and your livelihood will be in jeopardy. But how could you not help the guy, Cincinnati? Indiana, if you knew of this, how could you not help the guy? Once again, gambling addiction is such a pride-filled thing of people don't want to admit to it because they're like, oh, I have control. I have self-control. It bothers me that I've spoken twice on this timeline of different programs knowing of this being a problem. And no one helped the guy. No one thought first to like, hey, we have this kid who's going through something serious. He's not just putting $2 down on it. He's actually going through something serious. He's putting in thousands of bets. Now, either we could put him in a position where we go win some games, and yes, it's great that he could go and make $5 million in an NIL deal. That's great. Or we could at least put him on track to recover, on a track to better himself as a human. But no, sports are a zero-sum league. That's one of the things that bothers me a lot about it. And then Texas Tech on the other side. I know that the transfer portal is a speed dating quest of sorts, right? Like, you're not recruiting Brendan Sorsby since he was a true freshman in high school, like he was recruited out of high school by a lot of teams. When the kid enters the portal at late December or early January, you have like 2 days. He might enter on Monday and want to commit by Wednesday or want to commit by Thursday. So I understand that it's a different lifestyle. It's speed dating. You don't have the time to really fully vet everything. But a background check where we've now seen how evident two programs knew about this problem. 3 phone calls couldn't hurt you. Like, I'm not saying like go to the FBI and get a background check, but I've never made an investment of this number. I hopefully one day will, but I probably won't be there for a while being able to make a $5 million investment. But if you're Texas Tech, if you're anyone in the business world, like take football out of it, you're making a $5 million investment and you're looking for returns in only 1 year. And for Texas Tech, that return would be a deep playoff run, a national title. You would think that the $5 million investment you want to make has been vetted a little bit more. Look, I know most of the stuff that I read to you, I've found on CBS and ESPN and Fox and those articles, sure. So it didn't take me very long to find the stuff from his background, from his history. Texas Tech couldn't have made a couple calls. Texas Tech couldn't have talked to Cincinnati. Better yet, Cincinnati, once he signs with Texas Tech, or once he's close to signing with somebody, you don't think it would be in your best interest, in the kid's best interest, for you to let the program know? I hope they did. I haven't seen anything that Texas Tech necessarily knew about it before, but it feels fishy that clearly the NCAA came down to Texas Tech like a week and a half ago saying, hey, your quarterback's under investigation for gambling that he did in 2022 and 2023 and a little bit since. His gambling habits are under investigation. And then all of a sudden, that quarterback ends up in a residential treatment program. Like, it feels like they were just waiting to get caught, not wanting to help the kid. And they came out with a statement saying all the right stuff, like his health, his mental health, his seeking help for his gambling addiction is top of mind right now. That's all that matters to us. That's all we want to focus on. We support him fully. That's great. You can say that. But once again, 2 programs knew about this. You guys invested $5 million into him. He's been in your program for 5 months barely now. It feels like you were just taking the risk. You knew about it, but you just wanted to take the risk. And then once you got caught with your pants down, you're like, okay, yeah, we'll go send him to residential treatment program so we can get out ahead of this, instead of just trying to help the kid. That part of how sports are such a zero-sum game bothers me. I understand it for the most part, but it bothers me. So that's what's going on with Brendan Sorsby. Brendan Sorsby in recent days has also come out that he is not only undergoing the residential treatment program, but his gambling habits, the full load, has been somewhat leaked and released through ESPN. What he's been betting, how much he's been betting. That kid's not going to play college football anymore. Even hopefully he comes out on the other side of his GA, a better man, a better football player, a better person, better understanding of his ability to self-control. Even if he does come out perfect, guys, the things that the level in which he was betting, once again, makes it really hard to believe that people didn't know about this. And 2, makes it really hard to believe that he's going to play college football anymore. And he's recently retained a lawyer trying to ask the NCAA for further time to play college football after he's out of this program, understanding that he probably won't be allowed to play for Texas Tech next year, but hoping that he can play in another year if he gets another year of eligibility. Who knows what'll come of that? All I can pretty comfortably say is, Brendan Sorsby, I hope you get the help you need. You're not going to be playing college football for Texas Tech this year. What does this mean for Texas Tech, though? You have multiple backup quarterbacks, but you put all of your money, all of your investment, all of your resources, all of your eggs into the Brendan Sorsby basket. Brendan Sorsby was supposed to be the difference in you making a national title game versus just making the playoffs. Will Hammond's your backup. He played a little bit last year, just a spell during injury. I seriously don't see a world where Texas Tech is a national title. Like, I think their national title ceiling's gone. Will Hammond's a fine quarterback, but there's a reason you go out and spend $5 million on Brendan Sorsby. Now, Texas Tech, regardless of how much they spent last year, I think they surprised everybody just with how they performed, how they played, how they came, just with everything that involved with how they played last year. Sure, they surprised everybody. So they can do it again this year. I'm really interested to see and really excited to see if they're able to. Well, it's a bummer. It's something that I'm struggling to put into words right now, because I think that if Texas Tech knew about the gambling and was just going to take the risk, then I'm sorry, at that point, I don't have much sympathy. But with that said, if they didn't know about it and they did the vetting and nothing came up, then you probably need new vetters. But if they were just as surprised as I am about this happening, then this year might feel like a lost year. It shouldn't be. There's still another year of college football. You're still going to coach, still going to play. You still have a chance to do some special things. Will Hammond could really break out, but it might feel like a lost year for you, and that's the shitty part of the speed dating of transfer portals. So that's what we got there. I want to move to the Big Ten, move to Dante Moore, actually Big Ten and SEC. Oh, I know no one wants to talk about the mock drafts for next year already. I don't want to talk about it either. The Big Ten, the SEC, they hold a large number of kids mocked to go in the first round of 2027. And rightfully so. I think Oregon's got a ton of guys. Texas has got a ton of guys. And you expect that, right? With that said, I've been talking to some of my friends who are Jets fans who are expecting to pick high next year. And the Jets have 3 first round picks. And they're trying to plan out their draft as a fan does, and because one of the best parts of being a fan. Right now, they're like, okay, what about like an Arch Manning first, and then Jeremiah Smith with their second pick, and then whatever with their third pick. Maybe they keep all 3 picks. I would imagine they're going to at least package 2 of them in a trade up to get the quarterback they want. Long story short, my response to them, because I've seen Arch Manning mocked really high a ton in a lot of different mock drafts, the Athletics mock draft. Like, my friends who want Arch Manning over Dante Moore next year, I guess my question for you is it because you saw Dante Moore fail in the national semifinals? So I might not have said that right, but Arch Manning's team didn't go that far. So by Dante Moore's succeeding and leading his team further, it led him to a place where he really played poorly in the national semis. But because Arch Manning's team didn't do that well, he didn't have the opportunity to play and lose to Indiana in the way that Oregon and Dante Moore did. My question for Jets fans, my question for everybody in this case and scenario for me is, what did Arch Manning show you last year that by and large tells you that you'd rather have him over Dante Moore? And this might come off as bias from me. I get it. You guys know what team I'm a fan of. You guys know where I went to school. My only bias here is if we're making mock drafts of 2027 right now, the only thing we can base it off of is what we saw in the 2025 season. We haven't seen the 2026 season yet. It's May of 2026. The 2026 season has not. Arch Manning hasn't played. Dante Moore hasn't played. Maybe by the end of 2026, we're going to watch both guys and be like, yeah, Arch is the guy. But my question, once again, as of right now, from what you've seen from both quarterbacks, how is Dante Moore not the guy that you want leading your franchise and being that guy for your program next year in the draft? I get the appeal. Arch Manning, obviously, the last name's there. Obviously, he was trained, taught, everything from like the royal family of football. I get it. But if we just want to talk about just basic numbers, last year, Dante Moore, 71.8% completion percentage. Arch Manning, 10% lower, 61.4. Last year, Dante Moore, 3,500 passing yards. Arch Manning, 3,100, 400 less than Dante Moore. Dante Moore had a 163.7 passer rating. Arch Manning, 144.9. Dante Moore, 30 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. Arch Manning, 26 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. So he had less interceptions than Dante Moore, 4 less touchdowns. Dante Moore played in 2 more games. He led Oregon on a deep playoff run. Yes, they flamed out at the end, but on a per game basis, Dante Moore feels more like your finished product, who still has another year of production and development left at Oregon, while Arch still feels like he's progressing. Look, there's a nuanced conversation to have here about this. I think Arch Manning is an excellent quarterback. I think Arch Manning last year was, if his name was Arch Hatfield, Arch Markazi, people would be like, oh yeah, this kid's going to be something special, but not like disappointed and also overhyping him at the same time because he's a Manning. People expected him to be a finished product this past year. And I can't lie, I also thought he was going to be really good. I think a lot of the problems they had this year weren't his fault. Jason and I have talked about that plenty. They couldn't run the ball. Arch was the leading rusher a bunch on that team through halves, through quarters, through games. They really struggled to sustain a regular drive. And a lot of that was the fault of the offensive line. A lot of that was on the fault and on the shoulders of C. Sarkisian not being able to put together a good offensive game, not building a good run game for Arch. So, yeah, I think Arch could very well be the first overall pick next year. And he could very well have some really special things happen that he's a part of this year. He could lead Texas to the national title. He could do some awesome, awesome things. I just want to know once again, from what you saw in the 2025 season, how could you right now look at me and tell me that you would rather Arch over Dante? They both are mobile. They're both good with the ball. They both can make special plays. Dante Moore has been better. I think here, I'm gonna take a step back real quick. The tricky part of this conversation for me is I don't want to come off as an Arch hater, because I think over the history of the show, I've been the defender of Arch Manning. Not that Jace has been like hating on him, but I've been like any other. Actually, he's been saying this too. So in all fairness to both of us, we've both been saying if he had a different last name, people would just see him as what he is, a quarterback with high skills, high ceiling, and he just hasn't gotten there yet, but he's developing. But this kid's overhyped a lot, and he's also hated on too much. I'm a big Arch Manning guy. The only thing that bothers me about this conversation is people out there want to say, like my Jet fan friends, you guys want Arch Manning number one. I just don't know what you've seen currently. And are you just as Nostradamus of a football fan that you can sit here and tell me that, yeah, no, Arch is going to be the better NFL player? If you can see the future, absolutely tell me. I'm happy to know. I'm happy to learn. Like, I get it. But none of us know what the future looks like. None of us know which of these guys is going to be a better NFL quarterback. Both of these guys have the mental makeup. Both of these guys have the physical tools. Both of these guys have the necessary talent and skill around them to do so. But we saw one guy be much more successful than the other in 2025. And that's the only thing we can base it off of. So it just bothers me when it's almost like Dante, because he succeeded and earned the right to play Indiana in a game in which he was bad in. Now people are down on him, but Arch Manning didn't even get to a first playoff game for the chance to have people be down on him, let alone a third. I hope both of these guys go 1-2. I expect both of these guys to go 1-2 next year. I don't want to do a mock draft right now. I think people who do a way too early mock draft really struggle to find content where you can find content. You can be interesting in other ways. We don't need to come up with bullshit. But that was the conversation there. One more discussion before we close it out. I'm feeling my voice going out. So I think we're in a race against the time here right now. But one more discussion is if you go on 24/7 Sports recruiting rankings website right now, you will see something very interesting. You'll see Oklahoma sitting there first in recruiting. They have 21 commits, 11 4-stars, 10 3-stars. Average rating per recruit 89.86. They're doing really well. I don't necessarily expect them to stay there, but they at least have a top 10 class. And then we'll see what they do to build off of it. Texas A&M, 13 commits at number 2, 1 5-star, 11 4-stars, 1 3-star, 92.77 average rating. That's why they're so high up on here. Their average rating per recruit is so much higher than Oklahoma's. USC, 13 recruits, 9 4-stars, 4 3-stars, 91.0 average per recruit. So I told you those are the top 3. If you know who number 4 is, don't say it. I want you to let everybody who's listening to this take a guess at who number 4 is. Jace, if you don't know, I want you to take a guess at who number 4 is. UCLA. 14 commits, 7 4-stars, 7 3-stars, 88.36 average rating per recruit. And look, Mind you, that's above Penn State, that's sitting at 5. That's above Ohio State, that's sitting at 6. Above Notre Dame at 7. Oregon at 8. Kentucky's at 9. UCLA is at 4th right now. Texas is at 14th. Miami's at 15th. Let that sink in. Texas Tech is at 16th. Georgia is at 18th. UCLA is at 4th. So I don't know when it's time to take a victory lap for flag for discussions, probable just belief in Bob Chesney and what he's doing at UCLA this year. Because we haven't seen him coach a game yet. And no, they're not going to finish this cycle 4th in recruiting. They're not going to finish the cycle probably top 10 in recruiting. But can I tell you one thing? They finished 2026 64th in recruiting. They finished 2025 40th in recruiting. 2024, they were 99th in the country out of 120 something programs, FBS programs, 99th. 2023, they were 41st in the country. 2022, they were 61st in the country. They're 4th right now. None of it matters until all the players are signed. They're probably not going to finish in the top 10 or maybe not top 15, but this shows a lot to me that Bob Chesney's plan is working. They could go out this season and go 0-12, and I would still believe in Bob Chesney. It's not how he says things. It's the fact that we know that he has his mind in the right place. He knows that at UCLA, even though you are taking over a major P4 program in a major conference, one of the 2 major conferences, Big Ten, they lost a lot of support. It's really hard to get people to the Rose Bowl. What has he been doing the last couple of months? Just developing fan support from within again. Nothing will bring fans to a ballpark or a stadium more than just winning. I understand that. But just developing that culture, developing a tandem of fans from the early on, that is huge. And that's what he's doing. If we saw him bring pizzas early on to we saw him bring Little Caesars pizzas to Frat Row at UCLA just to get them to come out for the spring game. I don't know how they're going to be as a team this year. I don't think they're going to finish 4th in recruiting because I think Oregon, Georgia, Texas, Ohio State, they're all going to make their mark on recruiting. They're all recruiting fine right now. They're all going to recruit even better as time goes on. But UCLA is doing stuff that they haven't done in over a decade in just 5 months under Bob Chesney. There's plenty of reasons to be optimistic in Pasadena, and I wouldn't be surprised if they at least have a 7-8 win season, something they would beg for 3 years ago under Chip Kelly. They've been up and down so much with Deshaun Foster. I mean, that guy. We all tried not to laugh at his freezing up at Big Ten media days, but I think if anyone had a crystal ball into the Deshaun Foster UCLA era, that should have given us red flag number 1 from the beginning. So we've seen a lot of good things so far. UCLA is in a place right now where the spring game went well. Madden and Nico Iamaleava, the brothers, both played very well. Defenses seem to have shown out and played even better than the offenses, but that doesn't matter right now in terms of the long-term building of UCLA. The reason I'm so high on Bob Chesney is that he's not trying to build a good 2026 team. He's trying to build a program. And a lot of that takes time. But every time that I've seen something put out by UCLA Social, every time I've seen that guy talk, it's been like, that guy gets it. And I know I've said that on this show before, but that guy truly gets it, guys. UCLA, mind you, UCLA being 4th in recruiting with 14 commits, they have 7 4-stars. Maybe NIL probably has some parts to it to do to this. But I think when I came on this show like 2 months ago and I said, why would he leave UCLA for Michigan in 2 years if he's successful at UCLA? I think my point then is already coming to fruition now. If he's successful at UCLA, it means that UCLA donors, boosters, and the fans have upped their support of the program. And at that point, he looks around saying, Southern California, pretty nice. He looks around saying, oh, I get to coach, live in a place that it's beautiful. The weather is rarely bad. I have 20-minute drive to the best recruits in the country. Maybe I stay. Now, there's nothing wrong with Michigan. There's nothing wrong with any program that might want to hire him, and he might leave. But I might be getting way too ahead of myself. Might have to wait to see him coach a game at UCLA. You can say that, and I'll respect that, and I'll understand. But just the simple fact that they are 4th in recruiting right now is my take coming to fruition. I want to take a victory lap. That guy gets it, and that guy is going to slowly start getting, showing people how cool UCLA can be if it's rolling. I don't know if they're going to be ready to compete for a Big Ten this year or next year or 2 years from now, but you're building a program. And I think there's only good vibes in Pasadena right now. I'm hopeful for the future for Bob Chesney and for everybody involved there. Just really fun. I knew early on when we started this podcast that Jason and I would both start becoming, how do I put it? Jason and I would both start becoming fans at a unhealthy level of other you guys know who we're fans of. You guys know where Jason and I went to school, but we love the sport. So we knew inherently that we would become unhealthy fans of certain people or players or coaches outside of the program that we were a fan of. I didn't think either of us would have expected to fall so hard for one guy this quickly. And I'm just praying UCLA shows a pulse in football this year. I'm not sure that by showing a pulse, that's like winning 6-7 games. I just want to be right on him as a coach on the field, but as right as we have been as him off the field. All right, my voice is going out. I got to close out the show. Thank you so much for listening. Make sure you're following us on Twitter at F4Discussion, on TikTok at Flag4Discussion. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts, at Flag4Discussion spelled out. YouTube, subscribe to us at Flag4Discussion spelled out. Thank you so much for listening. From myself, Farbod Merkazi, have a wonderful first week of May. Thank you so much. This has been Flag4Discussion.